You go to a place that seems promising, where things come together harmoniously in space. You define your frame, and then you wait with a kind of completely crazy, irrational hope that some people will come to place themselves in it. This photographer is most often associated with capturing truly human moments on the streets of Paris. Throughout his life, he created 450,000 negatives, but claims, "I did not set out to create a body of work. I just wanted to leave behind the memory of a little world that I loved." This poetic nature comes through in all that he created. From his help forging documents for the French resistance during World War II that showed his loving commitment to helping his fellow man, to his work with French Vogue that showed his love for Paris as it rebounded after the war. Later in his color work shot far from Paris in an effort to document the city of Palm Springs, and through one famous photo of what ultimately became a controversial kiss. The world that I tried to show was a world in which I could feel at ease, where people would be nice, where I would find the kindness that I wished to experience. My photos were a kind of proof that this world can exist. This is Street Smarts Volume 42, Robert Doisneau. This video is brought to you by Dehancer Film Emulation. Robert Doisneau is one of the most highly regarded photographers to come out of France. He was born in Paris in 1912 and created a body of work that is often noted for its poetic, charming, playful, and surreal nature. He began his artistic career by learning engraving, lithography, and various other techniques that were involved in creating books. But through this process, he found that he was drawn to the streets in the working-class neighborhoods of Paris, which he credits as being the place where he learned more about the world than any other. He would begin taking photos at the age of 16, but had issues developing as a photographer due to his shy nature. Once he progressively got over that, he went to work in advertising photography in 1929, sold his first photo essay to Excelsior newspaper in 1932, and moved on to automotive photography for Renault, until he was fired, at which point he made a living through selling postcards and other advertising photos. In World War II, he worked with the French resistance to create fake passports, while also photographing the occupation and liberation of Paris. After the war ended, he spent 4 years working for French Vogue, and would go on to create his first published book in 1949, followed by 30 additional books throughout the remainder of his career. There are days when simply seeing feels like happiness itself. You feel so rich, the elation seems almost excessive, and you want to share it. Robert Doisneau is most often credited as being a humanist photographer. Humanist photography is also known as poetic realism or human interest photography, and is defined as a style of photography that focuses on capturing everyday life and human emotion in a natural, candid way. Two quotes from Doisneau sum up his feelings on this style. "I don't photograph life as it is, but life as I would like it to be." And "The marvels of daily life are exciting. No movie director can arrange the unexpected that you find in the street." To truly capture this feeling, his photos are often playful and convey a type of childlike curiosity about the world that regularly shows people sharing pleasant, candid moments. This style of street photography was founded in France in the 1930s through Doisneau and Bresson. It's continuously captured by Doisneau through themes that regularly occur in his work, themes that were defined through his first photo book that include kids, love, Sundays and public holidays, free time, work, and housing. All of these topics are shown through the regular, everyday people of Paris, who he found to be more compelling than the upper crust of society. The evolution of his style and his humanist tendencies come from how he began to take photos that were mostly directed by shyness. He said, "I regretted not being able to get closer to people, but I didn't dare to get too close. And it's really these images, which have a lot of air around them, which are the most touching to me now." He believed the photographs are made for others, not for the photographer. So when he did occasionally revisit his own work, it was less about personal reflection and more about recalling how others felt when they first saw the image. His growth as a photographer accelerated during his time at Renault. The company required that any images featuring people use actual factory workers, which gave his photography a clear and purposeful context. This environment pushed him to engage directly with his subjects, helping him overcome his shyness and become more confident behind the camera. He would eventually get fired from this job. Many sources point to that happening as a result of his constant lateness and absence from work. Reflecting on his time there, he stated, "I feel the same gratitude towards the Renault factory, where, for 5 years, I dragged around a bag as heavy as a dead donkey. There, between 2 flashes of magnesium powder, I learned about the world of those who get up early." This video is brought to you by Dehancer Film Emulation, a plugin to help photographers and videographers achieve the look of film through digital means within the following software. For more information on how Dehancer can help you achieve the look of film on your frames, by adding authentic and tested looks, compression, grain, halation, bloom, and more. Check the link in the description. Before World War II, Doisneau became a member of the WWII agency and was set to become a full-time photographer with the group. His first reports were interrupted once the war began, and in 1939, he was drafted into the French army. He was then relieved of his duty not long after, in 1940. At that point, he used his skills as an engraver and photographer once he joined the resistance. These forgeries usually took 48 hours to complete, but in one case, when a man named Serge Dubkowski was in dire need of the papers because he was being followed and needed to flee as quickly as possible, Doisneau simply took his photo and swapped it with the picture on his own identification card, gave the card to the man, and helped him escape. Doisneau's work as a member of the resistance is still being understood, and as recently as October 2024, an exhibition was held to honor it called The Spirit of Resistance at France's National Resistance Museum. During this period, Doisneau documented the German occupation of Paris through images of empty shop windows, ration lines, military parades, and civilians taking shelter during air raids. He also photographed the liberation of the city, capturing scenes of Parisians united to reclaim their streets as Allied forces arrived. After the war, he produced a photo series for the magazine Le Point, accompanying an issue that focused on first-person accounts of French writers and printers who risked their lives to form the underground publications house, which published 25 volumes during the Nazi occupation. The photographs Doisneau contributed were stage reenactments of moments that resistance fighters would have experienced in producing and distributing this literature, which played a vital role in the underground communication network during World War II. The role of the individuals involved in making these leaflets were pivotal to ensuring the impact of the resistance, and the photos show all the steps that would have been involved in creating them, from typists to different machine operators to couriers and distributors. Once World War II was over, a few significant developments took place in Doisneau's life. He went back to work for the agency he had been a part of before the war and began to create photo essays around a wide range of topics, from Parisian news to stories that would have appeared in foreign publications like Life. From 1948 to 1952, Doisneau was hired to create work for French Vogue. There he shot high society balls, fashion, portraits of artists, and scenes of urban life. However, his photos were not meant to strictly cover fashion, but the world around it at events from the time to show the humanity around this side of French society. He targeted the bored little girl jumping on the buffet during the posh wedding, the backstage of a fashion show, the unretouched faces. At the same time, he had mixed feelings about working with the magazine, and also tried to focus his attention on celebrities and models, stating, "They are ballerinas who improvise in front of the camera. We say mannequins. It sounds like a coat rack, but it's not true at all." There's a sense in the photos Doisneau created for Vogue that he had a lot of freedom to shoot as he pleased. In 1991, reflecting on the photos that he created during this period that are specifically fashion photos, he stated, "Nowadays, I'm ashamed when I look at the fashion photographs," which seems to be a very clear indication of why he did not pursue more of this type of work outside of that 4-year period. It was also during this time that Doisneau joined Group 15. The group was a Parisian photography collective dedicated to establishing photography as an art, exploring technical aspects, and promoting a humanist approach to the medium that was formed from the remains of another collective called Rectangle, and the addition of several new photographers with the mission statement, "Proud above all of their craft," inspired by the same faith and wishing to contribute works of quality to the art of photography. They have decided to found a fraternity of photographic artists. They held yearly exhibitions with the goal of promoting and retaining French photographic heritage until they were disbanded in 1957. According to Peter Hamilton, who wrote a biography about Doisneau, it's difficult to assess the real importance of Group 15 in the post-war development of French photography, but its role as a forum for debate and for the discovery of certain relatively unknown photographers may well have been important. For Doisneau, it was the occasion to discover Auger for the first time, via the exhibition in 1948, and subsequent debates within the group, which was divided about the relevance of his photography. Doisneau said he immediately felt a fellow feeling with Auger's pictures, but his view was not universal within the 15. The main thing that Doisneau pulled from his time with the group was a feeling of value for his work, as it had gained respect from his peers. Throughout Doisneau's career, he published 30 photo books, most of which revolved around different aspects of Parisian life. This began in 1949 with the publication of his first book, which included 130 images of Parisian suburbs to show what they looked like in the aftermath of the war. and it remains one of the best documents to show that period of the city's history. When Doisneau began to photograph the suburbs, there were still the tough but spirited working-class communities celebrated in the poetic, realistic films. But Doisneau caught them just as they were about to change and expand beyond recognition, making this book a valuable document that looks unsentimentally, yet affectionately, at a popular idea of French working class. That's according to Martin Parr and Jerry Badger, who created 3 giant volumes of books that focus on the history of photo books. In Doisneau's own words, "Nowhere else would I have had the privilege of meeting so many different individuals as in the playground, where I played the part of the wandering photographer. Never would so many opportunities have been offered to me to stare in astonishment if I had been the department supervisor or an inspector of weights and measures." In 1954, he released a book of street photography and street portraits that showed some humor by combining photos with text that provided a made-up story of tourists observing the real people of Paris. His shots are not always candid, and in many instances are staged. He described how this might have happened by observing one photo from the book, saying, "Here, for example, is a photo that was completely staged. A group of us were in a cafe on the Seine, all of us a little drunk. There was a girl with us. I suggested our friend, who was a painter, and who was going to paint the girl, paint her in the nude, to see how people would react. That's the origin of the image of the guy with his fox terrier." In 1955 and 56, 2 other books were released. Both continued to focus on spontaneous actions of Parisian streets, with the first having more of a focus on what children were getting up to. This is a topic that Doisneau is famous for, and is something he would follow throughout his career. The camera frames the children from above in a wide shot, a point of view intended to be paternal, protective, knowing. This celebration of the family weaves secrets, sacred threads among the people photographed. A troupe of volunteer actors who understand one another, and are in conscious control of the space on the stage and the custom-built sets. The second of these books contains musicians, factory workers, lovers, street artists, dancers, school children, and fishermen, each captured in revealing moments, along with a striking photograph of Picasso and a 7-page photo essay of crowds lined up before the Mona Lisa, which had been removed and hidden during the war and returned afterwards to the Louvre. 2 later books titled Summer Holidays from 1991 and Family Life from 1993 became very popular. The book Summer Holidays was made up of photos that he was commissioned to create in 1959 of French people on vacation, which ended up not getting published at the time. According to Peter Hamilton, these books represented a form of personal expression Robert had rarely known. Many of the photographs used in these 2 books were images of his family holidays and domestic life. Though Doisneau had never shrunk away from using his family and friends as subjects of photographs destined for publication, the selection of images for these 2 books seemed to reveal how thin the line always was between the personal and the public in Doisneau's life. A lesser-known area of Doisneau's work is the many portraits he created. These images were often commissioned by artists and included directors, writers, painters, designers, actors, and more. He covered this topic from 1937 onwards, and involved over 70 different people in this craft that included names like Pablo Picasso, David Hockney, and Duchamp. On Picasso in particular, he stated, "Picasso, an exceptional model. He filled up the space with the skill of an actor, a dancer, inventive, ingenious, clever. He was a wily devil, an infectious vitality. He scattered a golden dust that landed on his friends." This also expanded into Robert's photography of sculptures. He visited many different studios to create these portraits. All the while, he lived near the Museum for Rodin, and would capture images there that highlighted the manufacturing of thinker statues. He had regularly taken photos of statues in parks and public places throughout his life, so involving the creators of sculptures into his own work was a natural fit. The kiss is easily Doisneau's most well-known photo. From a documentary on the photographer, "My grandfather worked for Life magazine," which, in 1950, commissioned a series about love in Paris. At the time, people didn't kiss in the street as readily as they do today. He had to use actors for his photo, like a film director. He went to hire 2 apprentice actors to play lovers. For them, it wasn't just a way to compose a photo. They were already seeing each other all the time away from the stage. He posed them all over Paris. Across from the Hotel de Ville, he found the right angle. The 2 lovers posed, the man in the beret passed behind them, and he snapped the photo. The photo appeared among other kisses, and did not excite any particular attention, until one day in the 1980s, when it was suggested that he make a poster of it. As soon as it was published, the image became a symbol not only of the generation, but of state of mind that would travel around the world. Bohemian Paris, the Paris of lovers, the Paris of freedom. The photo is widely believed to be a candid moment until the 1980s when its popularity grew. At that time, up to 15 different couples contacted Doisneau, claiming to be the ones depicted in the image. Most of these claims led nowhere, except for one case in which a couple sued him for royalties. In response, Doisneau revealed that the image had been staged and presented evidence that he had hired actors, leading to the case being dismissed. However, a second lawsuit soon followed, this time filed by the actual actors featured in the photo. This legal battle reportedly troubled Robert deeply, but after more than a year, the court ruled in his favor, stating that the original payment had been made at the time and that there had been no prior agreement for ongoing royalties. In 1960, Doisneau received a postcard from a friend inviting him to take photos in Palm Springs. This was far outside of his normal stomping grounds of Paris, but he felt that it sounded compelling, and once commissions were arranged from Fortune and Life magazines, he was off to explore the suburban area placed in the American desert that was still in the process of being constructed. The photos that he took in New York en route to Palm Springs proved that this American adventure would have some difficulties. Since interactions and staging were involved in Robert's work, the language barrier made it challenging. Nonetheless, this is what he had to say once some time had passed in Palm Springs, where he had been sent to document a golf tournament. "I've been introduced to millionaire golfers, under the name of Robert of Paris. How are you?" As they all say with the air of being so pleased to see me, that it's quite flattering, and this is only the start. There are 19 golf courses here. I will end up with relations in oil, the cinema, and the automobile industry. The images he captured on this trip are the only real collection of color photos that he created during his career. The change in this process speaks to the change in environment and work incredibly well for the place and subject matter. Doisneau died in 1994, after having heart complications for over a year brought on by insomnia that began around the same time as the court case involving his photo, The Kiss. The last line in his autobiography reads, in a way that represents the poetic nature often attributed to his work. There is always the same haunting question that comes to spoil my pleasure. How many times will I see the marvelous chestnut trees on the boulevard of Arago flower again? And it's those same flowers that were laid on his coffin as he was lowered into the ground. Overall, Doisneau's work speaks to how we can become more involved in the world through photography, and how the introverted photographer can use his life as an example of how to break out of their shell and connect with a global community of those who create images. Additionally, his humanity through the role he played in the French Resistance, to the humor he found on Parisian streets, give us evidence of how we might put humanity into our own work. Thanks to Dehancer for sponsoring this video. If you want to know how to use their plugin to get the look of film on your digital photo and video, check the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, keep developing.